Hello students, this is Mr. Damiani, and today we're going to be looking at lesson 5.6, which is going to be focused on page 303 in your GoMath workbook. You may also want a separate piece of paper available as well. Definitely going to have some scrap paper to work with. If you want to take some of your notes for 5.6 right in your composition notebook, then you can do that as well. We are going to be working with finding the whole when given a percent. So we will be using our percent proportion today to work through the problems that you see up here in front of you, and just going to review that for you here. So the percent proportion has a few different keywords. Now the basic reasoning behind a percent proportion is you take this concept of the part and the whole, which is your fraction, and you set it equal to the percent over 100, which is your ratio of your percent. Now this is over of is also a keyword. Is a part word and of is a whole word. So no matter what, we're going to set it up equal to percent over 100. All right, so let's begin. So looking at question 6 here, the statement says 42 is 50% of what number? Our job is to fill in the blank. So I'm going to set up bar equals bar. And I'm going to put my 100 in the bottom right hand corner because that always goes in the same spot. Then I look in the problem and I notice I have a percent. So I'm going to put my percent over the 100. And then I notice that I have 42 is 50%. So 42 is the 50%. So that has to go on the top. Also that keyword of is, but there is a connection. 42 is 50%. So that has to stay on the top here. And we are looking for the of number, or the whole. So we now have our proportion set up, and I look, is there a way to multiply from 42 to 50? And there is not, so I cannot use a common divisor or multiplier, so I'm going to cross multiply and divide. I always start with my diagonal that has the variable, so I set that 50w, 50 times w. I set my cross products equal. 42 times 100 is 4,200. Okay, so I'm good here. I now have my cross products equal, so 50 times w equals 4,200. And I want to get w all by itself, so I'm going to divide by 50 on both sides. And notice how I'm setting up my work and spacing my work. Your work should match my work. 50 divided by 50 equals 1. So that cancels in our math world, and I'm left with w equals whatever 4,200 divided by 50 is. You can enter that into your calculator to get your work, and you get an answer of 84. Now you ask yourself, does that answer make sense? Well, if 42 is half of the bigger number, 42 doubled is 84. So that means our answer does make sense. All right, so let's move on to question 7 here. We're going to move through the exact same process. So I have 28 is 40% of some number. So I'm going to set bar equals bar for my ratio, or sorry, my equivalent ratios or my proportion. And I notice I'm going to put my 100 in the bottom right hand corner. That's not changing, folks, so I always get it in the same spot. I notice in the problem here, 28 is 40% of something, so 40%, put that over the 100. Notice I did not put the percent symbol with it because 40 over 100 is equal to 40%, and we're just putting it in ratio form. Next thing I notice, I have 28 is 40%, so that's got to go on the top. And again, we're solving for the whole. So we look at the problem, we say, okay, is there a way to multiply from 28 to 40? There is not, so I can't use my equivalent fraction rule. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide. 40 times w is 40w equals 2,800. Well, all right. I have 40 times w equals 2,800, so I'm going to divide by 40 on both sides, folks. Now we're going to do some mental division. Check this out. I know that I can cancel some zeros out by dividing out my 10. And I know 4 goes into that 28 7 times, 1 0 left over. My answer should be 70. You can check that up in the calculator if you'd like. 2,800 divided by the 40 gives me a 70. All right, I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video, complete 8 on your own, and check your work with mine. Thank you. Pause it up. Don't forget. All right, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and check your work with mine. You'll notice here that I came up with an answer of 80. Check your proportion, make sure you had everything where it belongs, cross multiplication step, and your answer. All right, so now what I'd like to do is we're going to go ahead and scroll down to questions 12 and 13 on the bottom here. So we're going to focus our attention there. And we are going to apply our problem-solving process as we work through question 12 here together. So let's be ready to work. First time we attack the word problem, we're just going to read for understanding and visualization. We're going to try to see if we can picture what is actually taking place within the problem. So please follow along. 40% of the students in 6th grade at Andrews School participate in sports. If 52 students participate in sports, how many 6th graders are there at Andrews School? All right, so apparently a survey was completed, and it looks like almost half of the 6th graders, 40% of the 6th graders at Andrews School participate in sports, and that is 52 students. What we're looking for is how many students there are in the school. All right, so that's just us taking an opportunity to try to visualize what's actually taking place. All right, now remember within your plan though, we are going to reread, we will mark it up, and then we're going to try to choose an appropriate strategy. So 40% of the students in 6th grade at Andrews School participate in sports. So 40% of the students, circle that for me, participate in sports. Okay, so underneath my plan section here, I'm just going to make a few notes. I know that 40% are sports. Just making a note from the problem. All right, I'd like you to write that down. This is under my plan, just in case you weren't sure what the P was. If 52 students participate in sports, well, I know there's 52 students that participate in the sports. There you go, just understanding what the problem's asking me to do. And that's participate in sports. How many 6th graders are at the school? So we want to know the whole amount of students, the total, or the whole. All right, so I look at this and we have to come up with a plan. So I see percents and I see missing values, then I think I'm going to end up using part over whole equals percent over 100. That's what I think. And I think a reasonable estimate is if 40% is about half and 52 is about half of the total, times 52 by 2, that gives me 104. So I know my answer should be somewhere around 104, maybe even just a little bit less than 104. That's just a prediction, not an exact. All right, let's get to the solve now. We are going to enter our information into our proportion. Now we have to make sure that our strategy shows our work and it is effective and efficient. All right, so I know 100 goes in the bottom right-hand corner. And if I'm given a percent that I want to use within the problem, I'm going to use it now. I notice that 52 goes with the 40%. I'm going to use both of those values to find my whole, or my missing piece. So I want to use the 40%. I'm not going to have to subtract and use 60% or anything like that. I want to use the 40% because that is directly connected to the 52, which will get me to the whole. 52 students participate in the sports, so 40% and 52 are connected. Those both have to be top numbers. And we want to find our missing total or whole. So we are going to cross multiply and divide to find our answer. Always starting with the diagonal that has the variable, 40w. That's 40 times w. And we're going to multiply that by, well, 52 by 100. So that's going to give me 5,200 or 5,200 by renaming. And I have 40 times w equals 5,200. I'm going to divide both sides by 40. 40's canceled. W equals 5,200 divided by 40 into your calculator. Gives me an answer of 130. And I look at that and say, okay, well, oh, I wrote the wrong value on my my estimate here, folks. That should have been greater than 104. I'm sorry about that. My fault. Definitely should have been greater because our value was less than 50%. So I meant to say greater over here. So looking at my estimate of greater than 104, I get an actual of 130 students. And I say that that is a reasonable answer. So, since it is a reasonable answer, as I go through that check process, did I answer the question? Well, did I come up with a student amount? And I did, and I came up with 100 students. And if 52 participate in sports, then I should have more than 52. And we predicted for greater than 104. So our answer is reasonable. So I'm not going to go back and check my work. I'm going to say, I think we're good, and we're going to move on. All right, so what I'd like everybody to do now is you're going to circle a couple questions for me to complete in your composition notebook under the title of today's lesson. I would like you to go ahead and complete question 10 and question 13. And remember, question 13 is a word problem, so I expect to see a plan, a solve, and a check. All right, use your 3-column chart if you need to get that organized. All right, so that is applying percent proportion to find the whole. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. Make sure you show all the steps needed to get those answers. All right, have a good night. Goodbye.